Attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Digital Marketer Office Hours for October 30th, 2014. My name is Russ Henneberry, and I'm Director of Editorial at Digital Marketer. And I'm excited to have you guys here today. We're going to be talking about some things about writing better blog posts, which is something that I've been working on for years. I've been blogging for I don't know, 8 years or so now. So I've worked on some pretty high traffic sites like Digital Marketer itself. So I run a lot of the blog strategy over there. Other sites you might have heard of with things like Crazy Egg. I started that blog, blog.crazyegg, back in I can't even remember what year it was now, but I guess it was 3-4 years ago. I've worked on Salesforce content and blog. So we're going to be talking about how do you write better blog posts. Posts that get that get shared, that get comments, that get engagement. But more importantly than anything, we're going to be talking about how to write how to create a blog that actually gets sales and things like that. But we're going to get really, really specific about actual writing practices on this call. I think Molly's on the call. Hey, how's it going,
Yeah.
Molly?
Hey, going awesome. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So don't forget that these calls are always recorded, and you can find them in your members area um, under the office hours tab, and you can go back as far as you like to find the archives of office hours. But we always like to lead off, and I see a lot of new faces in here, so we always like to lead off with a little bit of content. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about blog posts and things like that, and then we'll circle back around after I get through some stuff, and we'll talk with Molly about how Molly and I work together a lot from a content standpoint, and why content is part of what we do as a digital marketing strategy at Digital Marketer. So let's see. Let's start.
Hey,
Uh,
Russ, do
yeah,
you care to make me an organizer?
of course.
Thank you.
I was waiting for you to ask.
Sorry I was late. I got my Halloween costume in the mail here at the office, and
No,
I realized it was time to take it off.
I saw that. I saw that on the Facebook group. Are you a
Yeah, I
kangaroo? A
was like,
kangaroo, right?
yeah, I was like, I can't even take myself seriously right now.
No one would have known if you'd have been on this call in a kangaroo outfit, though.
I know, that's the beauty of it, but I would have known.
All right, let me make you an organizer, and we'll get started here. So what we're gonna do today, guys, is we're gonna take a look at some real life blog posts, and we're gonna talk about 6 things you can be doing to your writing to make it more consumable, more shareable. Because you can get all kinds of free traffic from a blog just by making a few tweaks to the way that you either write or edit things. So, we are not big fans of having a digital marketer like yourself write all the content for your blog. So if you've taken the Authority ROI course that we have available, the big premise, the underlying Authority ROI is that you should be tapping other people to create content for you, whether you have to pay them or just give them exposure through your traffic or whatever. But these concepts I'm going to teach you today, doesn't matter if you're writing it or you're just editing it or you're handing this kind of information over to your editor. These are the kinds of things that make blog posts go from average to great. And that's what this is all about, because there's been, if you started your blog back in year 2000, or back when blogs were sort of a new thing, you can write average content and get traction, but you can't do that anymore. You really have to be taking taking care to make sure that the content that you're putting on the internet is better than anything else out there. And these are some tips on how to make that happen. So the first one we're going to talk about is that you need to be focusing on your intro. So let's just forget the fact that you might not have any, that, let's assume that you have something very, very informational to say, something inspirational to say, something educational to say. Most of the time, a blog post, I'm going to spend more time on this one than anything else talking about this, because your intro is so important. And the reason is because everybody is so time starved on the internet that, or everywhere, not just on the internet, but everywhere in their life, they're so time starved. And if you cannot grab their attention right away, you are dead. So, and we'll talk about headlines in a little while, but everybody talks about headlines. I'm sure you know that writing better headlines is better, and I'll give you some tips there. But beyond the headline, you've got to grab them with the intro. And so I stole this from a very smart direct response writer named Joe Sugarman. He's the guy behind the ads that sold, however many, you remember blue blocker sunglasses. He was behind that. He was behind, he's a very, very, very successful direct response writer. He uses this term called the greased shoot. And what the idea behind the greased shoot is that if you can get somebody sliding down your copy, sliding down your blog post, your sales letter, your email, whatever it is, once you get them sliding down, it's hard for them to stop, or it's harder for them to stop. But the first thing you got to get them doing is you got to get a stone that is sitting still to start moving. And so you want to use something in the very beginning of your blog post to force their eyeballs down the page. And let me show you a guy who is very, very good at this. He's actually a member of DM Lab. His name's John Morrow, and he's a blogger that I watch because he's just a really good writer. So when you write your intro, you can make a huge impact on on how many people consume your blog post simply by changing the very first sentence around to be something that is very curiosity based, is very punchy, is very short. All right. You don't want a big long sentence here, and you don't want multiple sentences here. You will find almost no blog post that I put up on Digital Marketer that has more than one sentence in the first sentence. And most of the time, it's going to be something very short, very punchy, and very curiosity based. So look how John does it in this post. Everyone thinks we're fools, right? Now, what I want you to understand is that it is impossible for you to not read the next sentence of this. Almost nobody is going to not read the next sentence because it is a curiosity-based, punchy, hit you in the gut sort of line, and you can't really move past it. And this is really simple to do. It's something you can do. Somebody might hand you a great article to be put on your blog, and you look at it and you say, "Man, this is a great article." As the editor, I'm going to spend 3 minutes changing up the intro to get them sliding down the page. And a lot of it starts with that very, very first sentence. So let's take a look at another example on our site. I'll just pop this in here. Yeah, and Molly, if you see people have relevant questions like to what I'm saying like right now, then we can take those. And if not, we can just kind of pick a bunch of stuff up after. But guys, if you have questions about this or any questions about blogging, you can pop them into the questions box. This is
yeah, absolutely.
This is your time. So look at this one. So this post didn't do very well, to be honest. So I probably shouldn't have. Maybe shouldn't have used it as an example, but I grabbed it because I like I like the opening line. And you'll find this on almost every post that we write. And this opening line is, I've seen it far too often. And so the question is, what have you seen far too often? It's not possible to, if the headline grabbed you and pulled you in and you read that line, you're going to start down the chute. You're going to start down the chute. This is one that I just put up today. And so I just published this about 10 minutes ago. We don't even, but you see that the first line on this one, I'm willing to bet that ... Okay. I'm willing to bet what? Right? I'm willing to bet, what are you willing to bet? And really, the whole intro is really sort of punchy and sort of gets them moving down the page. And that's where, as an editor or as a writer, if you can take just a few minutes, and you don't even have to do it when you first write the post, you can go back and edit the intro after. In fact, that's sometimes a much better way of doing it. It's just to get into the meat of your post right away. And then, go back and add a nice greased chute intro. So does that one make sense, Molly? I know you're probably muted. I always do this to Molly, like when she's like,
yeah, absolutely. Muted. Sorry, I had myself. I had myself muted.
I know. I'm sorry.
Someone wants to know why that post didn't do well.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, it would have done really well on a site like Social Media Examiner. It would have done really well on a site like. It was a great post. It's we have a hard time. We have, and this is a good question and something you should be thinking about for your own blog. It doesn't matter if the post is fantastic or outstanding. What matters is whether or not it's fantastic and outstanding and your audience is into it. Okay. And our audience just simply is not that into organic social media as a topic. And so I write a lot about SEO, for us. But I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I don't write much about it anymore because it didn't do well. So when I write about search engine optimization, it just doesn't, people just aren't that into it. And so I have to respond to that as the person in charge of the content for this blog. I have to be able to say, look, I really want to talk about SEO. I like SEO. I'm a SEO kind of guy, but our audience isn't all that into it, and we need to stop talking about it, because it's just not a good topic for us. When we put up something like Molly, when you put up your post about Boomerang, the website custom audience stuff, that's right down our alley, right? So when I put up the post about better email subject lines, that Perry wrote, everybody loved it, so it's like, you have to be watching your statistics and know that, okay, so that post didn't do really well. Maybe you try another post about SEO, and if it doesn't do real well, and you feel like your headline was good and you did a fair good job of promoting the post and everything, and it just didn't do well, you got to cut that topic loose, man, because your audience just isn't into it.
And Jordan says, how do you tell if your audience is into it? What metrics do you use? I know we obviously look at the traffic and unique visitors and Google Analytics, but we're also looking at social media engagement and engagement in terms of content on the blog posts. I don't know if you look at anything else, Russ.
No, I mean, those are big. Those are big. And really what I look at most, and I won't jump into this right now because it would be sort of a rabbit hole, but I look at especially how many clicks we got out of email when we sent something, because that's our core audience. These are our subscribers. And if our subscribers aren't clicking out of email to go in, and sometimes I can go back and look at the email that was written to promote the post, and I can say, well, maybe the email didn't catch them right.
And definitely time on page is big too. That's definitely going to be affected by the length of the post or sort of, how complex it is. But, if you're seeing that people click over and then they're gone in, 10 or 15 seconds, then you can definitely gauge, interest that way.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't have enough traffic at all to see whether something did well or not.
Right. Emily says, not true. Most people don't understand SEO, so why would they understand the value? It's like taxes. They need to know about it. Keep writing about it. And then Annie says she's into organic SEO and social media. And so Lori says she's into SEO. Keep me posted or show me where to find the info in DM. There's an SEO execution plan in the members area, Lori, that can definitely help you out. And Annie also wants to know, can you talk about how to add keywords into a blog post? Do we want to include keywords in the headline or make that more of a hook, or both? So I don't know if you want to do that later, but that's a question.
Let me add that one in here as a
okay.
Something we'll talk about in a minute.
Okay. And we also, Dave really wants the formula for an opening sentence.
I mean, the big formula is short. So rarely more than like 8 words. It shouldn't even hardly ever. Let me see if I did that. Look what I did with this one. Now, this is one of our most popular posts. And part of it is that Ryan wrote it, and it's fantastic. But it leads off with, here's the thing. And it's like, all right, here we go. Let's rock and roll, man. I mean, it's like, here's
what
the
is
thing.
the thing?
Here's the thing. Most of the advice, and it's just like, blah, 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 blah. You have to keep people moving with nice, short, punchy sentences. And we'll talk about this more in a little bit, but you'll see times where good writers will, this sentence right here, pretty slick, right? It's more conversational. It just keeps you moving down the page. Ryan has a specific way that he writes, and this may not be your way of writing. And if you see the way I write, or you see the way Molly writes, or something like that, but it may not be your way. But either way, if your writing is verbose and like big and long, sort of, you're more Charles Dickens than you are, say, Ernest Hemingway, that doesn't play real well on the web, and I'm not saying you can't build a blog that way, because you might find people that are like, thank goodness I found somebody that really writes the way you're supposed to write. You know what I mean? But, you've heard this before. Your elementary school composition teacher would cry about this writing. But people online love it, but again, that might be your thing. Like, you write big, long, verbose posts, and that's fine. But I'm saying, if that's not your thing and you're just doing it sort of because you're on accident, like you didn't realize you shouldn't be doing that, try switching it up. See if you get better engagement. But you may find that, like I said, writing big is okay for you, and it's your thing, and it's what your audience wants. So there's no right or wrong answers to any of this stuff, but I'm just showing you what works for me and what I see working around the web and things like that too. So let me talk to you about one other second. So the first one is focus on your intro and get people moving down the page. And you can do that a lot. Again, short, punchy, curiosity based in that first line, and even the first few lines. Like, get them running down the page, get them hunting for information, trying to close loops. And that's what number 2 is. Number 2 is opening loops. Okay, so the reason I opened up this blog post is because Ryan does a good job of opening a loop in this post. And so what opening loops is about is that, human beings don't like to not know something. Okay, they don't like to have something half, a question raised, and then the mind is not able to close that question because they can't get the answer. Writers, especially, like, think about your favorite. Like, remember the show Lost, Molly? Remember that show Lost? Every single ending of right before they would go to commercial, they would open a loop.
I was talking on mute. Sorry.
They open loops at the end of right before they go to commercial break. They open loops at the end of every episode, right? Where they leave you with a cliffhanger, like, what's the answer? You know what I mean? Like, when will I ever get the answer? And it leaves you in anticipation, and it creates tension. And when you create tension, that gets people's attention. Okay, so when you create tension in someone's brain, it gets their attention. So I want to show you, let's see if I can just Control F on this and see. Okay, so right here where Ryan says, even a small subscriber list, if you nurture and manage it effectively, can produce an income most ordinary bloggers could only dream about. And as you'll see in just a second, if you follow our model, you'll also be doing less work than most. What he's saying is that in just a second, I'm going to show you how you're going to be doing less work than most using our model. And so what he's done there is he's opened a loop. You know, he said, I am going to close this for you later, but right now let me open this loop up that I'm going to show you this in a second. Now, opening loops is really good to do early on in a blog post because it gets people, again, to drag down the page. Because they're anticipating, they're looking for what you said. Does that make sense? So the concept of opening loops is not just useful in writing blogs. It's also very, very, very useful in promoting those posts through email and promoting anything. Whether it's writing a sales letter or writing an email. So let me show you an email that we used to promote a blog post. So this is an email. Here, let me zoom just a little bit so you guys can see a little bit better. This was that 10 oddball subject lines post that Perry wrote. And I want you to see that, you know, all I do in the front, all that's done in the front of this content here is like, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. This is what this post is about. And it's about 10 oddball subject lines. And then in the PS is where I want you to focus your attention here. In the PS, we open a loop. And the loop goes like this. The seventh formula, quota Buddha, is my favorite. We use this technique all the time in sales copy, blog posts, headlines, and email subject lines. Study that one in particular. It's powerful stuff. That opens a loop that can only be closed if you go read the post, right? So the reason Ryan uses the seventh formula, quota Buddha, is because it's a little bit mysterious. Like, what the heck's a Buddha, right? And how is that? How do I use that in copy, blog post headlines, subject lines, things like that? So this is a loop, right? So we're opening a loop in the email, and we're saying essentially what it says is if you click to go read this, it's going to close the loop. And so it's a very powerful tactic to use in any kind of writing. But if you use it in your emails, you know, open loops and then close them in loops later on, like in another email. Like say, hey, you know, look out for this email from me tomorrow where I'm going to tell you about X, Y, and Z. And what that does is it opens a loop. And what's been done in this is to say, click on this and you'll close the loop. And it gets a lot of clicks. So, you can use the concept of opening loops, whether it's early on in blog posts like we've done here, you know, where it's like, you know, as you see in just a second, if you follow our model, so it's like, okay, so now I've got an open loop here, and you're going to be reading along here, looking to see when it gets closed. All right, so that's number 2. Number 3 is not for everybody, but for the right writer and the right editor, this is really, really powerful stuff, and it's called hiding Easter eggs. All right, hiding Easter eggs. So I've got this here, which is saying this is a joke from the movie Shrek, And when this joke is made in Shrek, my 6-year-old son doesn't laugh, right? He doesn't understand, you know, he doesn't understand the joke. It's a joke that's meant for the adults that are watching Shrek, right? And there's tons of these in Disney movies, and they call them Easter eggs. They call them Easter eggs because this is the reason why you're able to, as a father or mother or aunt or uncle or aunt, or whatever you are to a child, watch these Disney movies because they hide lots of Easter eggs in there for you. All right. Now, when you're doing this on a blog, what you want to do is you want to include, if you want to show some personality and really endear people to you, you can drop Easter eggs into your articles that some people will get and some people won't get, right? But the ones that get it are going to love you, okay? They really, really become endeared to you because they're like, oh, I got that. It's when you drop sort of a weird reference to something that only some subset of people would get, right? Now, the big thing is that it cannot affect whether or not they understand your article or not. It just needs to add to it if they do, right? If it doesn't add to it, then they just skip right past it if they don't get it. Just like my son does when he watches this movie, right? He just, when Shrek says, do you think maybe he's compensating for something? My son doesn't even bat an eye. It just goes right over his head. He doesn't get it. He doesn't care. Okay. But the people that do get it are like, that's funny, right? And I get that. All right. It doesn't always have to just be funny. But usually humor is the way people roll with this. Let me show you an example from one of my favorite writers, which is Sonia Simone, right? She's talking about SEO in this post, and she's saying, don't buy links, man. It's a worse bummer than brown acid. Now, not everybody's going to get that, especially the younger readers of Copyblogger. This is a post off of Copyblogger. The younger readers are not going to understand the reference to brown acid, and some of you on this call may not even understand the reference to brown acid. I was not at Woodstock, okay? I don't even know if I was born when Woodstock happened, but I understand the reference to the bummer and the brown acid. So it made me chuckle, and it made me like Sonia more, and it made me like this blog more. So that's what hiding Easter eggs is all about. It's about endearing yourself, creating loyal fans by dropping subtle references, inside jokes, and things like that to your audience. All right. Number 4. So number 1 was focus on your intros. Number 2, open loops. Number 3, hide some Easter eggs. That's not for everybody, but if you're the right writer, hiding Easter eggs is great. Number 4 is stop writing intimidating text. So let me show you the difference between Microsoft, I love you. Okay, let me show you the difference between this text, this big block of text, which looks scary. Okay, it looks very, very, very scary. All right, and no one, again, it might be your style, and it might be the style of your site that you create content like this. But I can tell you, if that's not intentional, like that's not what you're doing and that's not what your audience loves, most people will prefer. Now, what you're going to notice is that this exact paragraph has been broken up. So I'm going to say, which would you rather read? This intimidating looking scary thing or this? Now, this is the same information. It's just broken up. Okay, so you can see that I have broken things up into bullets and broken paragraphs up into single sentences in some cases. I've broken this quote out that we had in here. I've got another big old list. So there is a huge difference between these two, and this one on the internet does not get read by a lot of people. They look at it, they get frustrated with it. It's too much of a big block of text, and And so they move on to this. Now, this goes right hand in hand with the first one, which is the greased chute. Your greased chute is not just your intro, it's the whole blog post. You got to keep people moving from one step to the next. So I think most people get that. So let's move on to number 5, which is to write better headlines. All right. Let's look at some headlines here. So I've got a few examples. Biggest mistake that people make with their headlines is that they make a statement. They make a statement about what the topic is. The topic of this is chocolate for breakfast. Okay. Now, how could we improve this in like 5 seconds? We just throw a question mark on the end of it. Okay. That is a much better headline or title for your post than this. All right. Because it implies that I'm going to learn something here. This doesn't even really mean anything. It's just a topic, right? It's like chocolate for breakfast, go. Well, what does that mean? Number 2, benefits of meditation. Okay. Okay. How do we improve that in 3 seconds or less? We add a number on it. Like, how many benefits are you talking about? And now I feel like there's something here. Okay. And the last one, win the war against childhood obesity. A lot of headlines a lot of these statement-based headlines could be improved just by adding the words how to on the front. So in 3 seconds, you add a how to on here, you got 1,000 times better headline. And why are headlines important? Because we live in this world of snippets where we pass around these little snippets of information. And if you want more information, you want to learn more about whatever that snippet said, you will click to go learn more. And what I'm talking about is Twitter is the most radical example of this, where you've got 140 characters, right? It is just a bunch of snippets with links usually, right? It's a lot of links going around in Twitter because it's like, here's a little snippet of this, and do you want to learn more? Click. Well, that's why that headline's got to be compelling. So learning to write better headlines or titles for your posts is really, really important. And if you're creating just subject-based line, or just statements like this, take a harder look at those. Now, inside of DM Lab, we have something called the social media swipe file. And inside of that, it's in the DM toolbox. And inside of that, you've got the social media swipe file, which is DM toolbox, social media swipe file. Now, this file is full of good headlines, and you can steal these and just sort of adapt them to your blog. But there's tons of really good headlines, and the whole thing sort of talks about why headlines work, what's better to write as far as headlines. Now, these work really, really well in social media, these social proof ones, these threat headlines, these gain headlines, but they're just great. They're great headlines for anything. You could use them on sales pages. You can use them modify them down a little bit to make them email subject lines. You can use them certainly as blog post headlines. So check that out. Now, the last thing we'll talk about is number 6, is focus on your closing, which is it's important because this is where you're going to either get comments, shares, opt-ins. People are going to grab your lead magnet. They're going to hit the share button and things like that. So your closing does not have to be like this big epic close where it's like, oh my God, that was fantastic. That was a lovely close. And you closed it so perfectly, but at least close it. Like, don't just stop saying stuff, right? And just be like, blah, that's it. That's all I got. Let me publish this. Tie it up some way at the end. And if you see a way to make it funny or to make it very inspirational at the end, do that. But at least tie it up at the end so that it's not just ending at the end of your post. This article that Julie wrote She had a great ending for it, but when I edited it, it was called How to Increase Sales Letter Conversions Without Changing a Single Word. What she talks about in here is how people skim. All right, this is actually a great post for this topic. In reality, because she talks about the same thing we were talking about earlier, which is why, she's basically like, this is what you wish everybody would see on your page. This is what they actually see. They see bullets, they see bold, they see headlines, they see things like that, underlining, but they don't see what you hoped that they would see. And she's talking about a sales letter here, but it's true for the blog too. At the end of this post, I changed up the closing because she's talking about, giving things formatting to make them more readable. I just did something funny here where I was like, so what do you think? And I changed all the formatting on all of these. So what do you think? And some people get that. Most people just kind of skip over it, but most people will get this and just be like, oh, that's kind of funny how he closed that, but at the very least, guys, don't just stop talking. And a real easy way out on a blog that has comments is just to say, hey, what do you think about this? Let's talk about it. That indicates that you've closed the article and it's over. All right, so that's 6 things you can do. Let's go over them one more time. Is focus on your intros, create that greased chute, especially at the beginning, open loops so that people are hunting around, looking to close that loop in your article. Hide Easter eggs if it's relevant to you. Break up that text so it's not intimidating. Write better headlines, okay? Take time on your headlines. Like, some people say take as much time on your headline as you did to write the post. I don't do that, but I take quite a bit of time to think through headlines. Focus on your closes and you'll be good. And then I wanted to talk real quick, Molly, like Molly and I work closely together on content. And so I wanted to get your thoughts about content and where do you think it fits into the things that we do at Digital Marketer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it plays a few roles, especially if you guys have gone through the boomerang traffic plan, it's the retargeting execution plan and lab. You'll learn how, we segment our Facebook audiences based on the content that they visit on our blog. So, if you're visiting a blog post about email, then when you go to Facebook, we're able to retarget you with a lead magnet about email marketing. So not only can you segment your audience based on their really specific interests, of course, content is a way to really bring people to your site and to build authority. So essentially a form of native advertising. So you'll notice that every one of our blog posts does have a call to action, whether that's to opt in for something or to buy something. We're using our content to show people, hey, we know what we're talking about. You should trust us. We're the real deal. And if you want more, here's where you should go. So, content's not only a way to educate people, but it's also a big part of our sales process.
Yeah. So when, like for this post, and really any post that you visit on Digital Marketer, you're going to find some kind of relevant call to action. Like, if you're writing something, try to find a way that you can say, like, here's a way to take another step closer to buying a product from me, because that's what we're all doing here, right? We're in business. So, if you look at what we do a lot on the blogs is we'll write about something that we have an execution plan about, and we'll tell people like, hey, if you're a member of Digital Marketer Lab, which all of you on this call are, and you have this extra thing, and it's your boomerang traffic plan, and if so this is what it is. Click here to get it. And what this is sort of saying is, hey, if you're not a lab member, you're not getting this. So it does 2 things. It tells the lab members where to get more, and it tells the lab members that, hey, there's a lot of cool stuff in lab. So it's a sort of a great blend, right, from our content where we're like, here's a bunch of good stuff about this. In fact, this article is incredibly good. And it did really well. And a lot of people saw it. And when they saw it, they come down here and they're like, oh, there's a whole traffic plan around this. That's cool. I'm a Digital Marketer Lab member. I'm going to go check this out. Or it's, man, I'm not a lab member. And every time I look at these posts, I see all these extra things I could have if I just paid $38.60 or whatever to be a lab member. So anyway, it's that plus, you're segmenting people by interest, right? Because you're able to retarget people that visited pages and know what they were interested in, know that they're familiar with your brand. And then the third thing we'd use content a lot for is just because, we send out a lot of promotional email, that sells things, and you will burn out your list if all you do is sell stuff through email. So, you got to have some content mixed in there as well to keep those open rates up and to keep adding value. I mean, people subscribe to you because they want solutions to things, not just one offer after the other. So,
absolutely. I think we have a lot of questions for you, Russ.
Oh, okay.
So Dave wants to know, if people skim so much, why are long form sales letters so word heavy?
Well, so, it's a fantastic question. I mean, the way somebody generally looks at a page is based off of research that's called the dual readership path. So there's two different types of people that read. There's your person that's going to read it from top to bottom and read every detail. And then there's your skimmer. And most people are skimmers. And so what they do is, the way that most people view a sales page, let's just pretend that this is a sales page and that I just landed on it. They're going to read the headline. Okay. They read the headline. If they're still interested, they're going to scroll down. They might read the first couple of lines of what this called the lead, right? The very first part. And if they're still interested, now they're like, okay, you made a promise to me, or you showed me some proof. I see the offer. I'm going to scroll all the way down. Now, how many of you guys do this when you're looking at a sales page? So it might be a mile long, the sales page, and you're going to keep scroll. And what you're looking for is the price, because you're saying to yourself, if they can do, and then once you see the price, if you're still in, you say, okay, if they can do what they said in the headline and in the lead for that price, I'm in. And then they go back up, and a lot of people will read it from bottom to top. And that's why so many PSs on long form sales letters. And in that PS, you're going to see people say, restate the offer, restate the guarantee, restate the scarcity of the offer, right? Because a lot of people read the PS, third or fourth in the order of, right after they read the headline, the lead, the price, and then they go down and they're all the way at the bottom. So then they look at the PSs and they start scrolling up. And when they're scrolling up, they're looking at the subheadlines, the bullets, and they're looking for things that catch their eye, right? And that's why your subheads, your bullets, all of that stuff has to grab people's attention. And, and then others, very few people, but others will read it from top to bottom, right? And they'll read the whole darn thing. So they might do what we said. They hit the page, they look at the headline, they read the lead, they scroll all the way down, look at the price, they scroll back up, and they start reading from top to bottom, looking for any reason that they're out. All right. So, and that's one of the reasons why we think video sales letters work better, because you can't scroll down and look at the price. You have no control over the sales letter. There's no buttons on it. There's no stop. There's a stop button. That's it. You can't fast forward. You can't rewind. You can't do anything. You can't even buy on our sales letters until a certain point, because we don't want you to be flying around looking at things out of order. We want to present the sales arguments that we want to make in the order that we want to make them, and then present you with the price and then the ability to buy. And that's why so many people are going from the long form sales letter to the long form video sales letter because it removes control over the person and it removes their ability to skim, right? So what else have we got?
What's a good, average length for content in terms of words and also images? How many images do we usually include?
Images, lots and lots and lots and lots of images, but that's our style, okay? And that doesn't have to be your style. You might, look at Seth Godin. This is one of the most popular blogs on the internet. There's just gonna be no images on this thing. He just writes, and he writes very, very short stuff. Now, this, of course, his first one's going to be a longer post. This is as long as you're ever going to see Seth Godin write anything. But most of his stuff is very, very short. But he writes something every day. So that's the post right there. No image, very short, horrible headline. All right. Pitchcraft. Like, don't study Seth Godin because Seth is Seth because he's Seth, right? And you're not Seth, all right? Not to say that you cannot build a blog just like Seth's and write headlines like this and write really, really short, punchy posts. But Seth writes like he throws daggers at you while he writes. So while you're reading, you're like, oh my goodness, like he really like started a fire in my head. And then he stops and he lets you fill in all the blanks, right? So that's a style. If you pin me down to like a style, like a length, how many images, like the way we do things and the way I see things working especially well in the digital marketing space or any how-to space, lots of images, as many images as you can possibly get and as high quality as you can make them, right? Explaining everything. And, between 800 and 1,500 words is average. One of the biggest blogs blowing up on the internet right now is Conversion XL. And the guy that runs that over there, Tommy Walker, is doing it with 3,000 to 4,000, 5,000 word posts. All right. Lots of images, upwards of, I don't know if this is going to get me there. Yeah. They publish twice a week. And there's tons and tons and tons and tons of images. So you have to kind of get your own style, but an average would be 800 to 1,500 words with as many images as makes sense, right? So one of our biggest blogs right now is DIY Ready. And if you look at DIY Ready, because of the market that they're in, the DIY market, these posts are very image heavy, extremely image heavy. And I just picked this one at random, okay? But this is how many images are in this post, lots, almost all images, right? So there's probably only about 1,000 words on this page, but tons of images, and they're very high quality. So that's the best I can do is tell you what we're doing, but also tell you that, you can have a style where you have no images, you write 100-word posts, and that's great. It's just rare.
Awesome.
So James is saying, here's an Easter egg for Russ. Do you have a cold or have you been in a snowstorm? What's he talking about? Am I heavy breathing again?
I don't know. No, you sound great to me.
All right. Here we go. I don't know. I missed that Easter egg, James.
So Ed says, if you have a good blog post, would you consider making it into a video?
Yeah. So one of the things we're working on ourselves and over at Digital Marketer, if you go to our YouTube channel, I mean, we repurpose our content better than anybody I've ever worked with, right? Because we've got like 5 reasons you should use Google AdWords. That was a blog post, all right? Why the machine's not, but how to scale your Facebook ad campaign. I think that was a post you wrote, Molly.
Yep.
And you repurposed it as a video. different types of YouTube ads. That was a blog post by Matt. So yes, absolutely, man. I mean, repurpose it in all kinds of ways. Molly, I'm sure like you know some things that Bridget's doing with our posts, like chunking them up into quotes and things like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, blog posts can be turned into all kinds of different pieces of content. So you could take a blog post that performed really well and turn it into a slide share or a YouTube video. You can pull quotes from the blog post, to use them as images for Facebook posts.
You can use them as lead magnets.
Yep.
Like
so
all
our
this,
best blog posts become lead magnets.
That's right. I mean, like the digital marketer. So it's another it's another use. This was a blog post. This is a blog post that I wrote last Thanksgiving. All right. I wrote this blog post last Thanksgiving, and today it's a great lead magnet. This one's also this is one that was a blog post, 212 blog post ideas. And we said, man, this post did so well with our audience. Remember we were talking earlier about some stuff just doesn't work and you got to cut it. Well, some stuff does the opposite. It does really well, and you got to be like, oh man, and this post is still online. Okay, this blog post is still online, and we also offer it as an opt-in. Right, and there's nothing wrong with that. Right, some people opt in to get it as PDF. Other people just read it on the blog.
Right. Annie says, when you create videos from a blog post, is that typically an animation of the text or someone speaking? You should head over to our YouTube channel and check them out. But we do both. Mostly, someone speaking.
Yeah, and it doesn't even feel like a blog post, right? It doesn't feel like he's just like you or Matt or whoever does the video is just, using a blog post. It sounds very conversational on the video. But yeah, if you go to Digital Marketers YouTube channel, you'll see lots of examples of almost everything in there is stuff that we just repurposed off the blog and create a video out of.
Bridget says, if you work with a niche and members in a club, wouldn't repurposing annoy them as they would say, I've seen this before?
So here's my thing, okay? And somebody said this to me like a long time ago, and it freaked me out, and it's so true. The thing is that you and me, Molly, and everybody else, digital marketer, are very intimate with our content. We're in it every day. We're in these execution plans. We're in the blog. We're here. We're there. We're writing emails. We're doing all this stuff, and so we are so connected to our content. We see it all the time, all day long. But the thing that somebody said to me one day, a very smart person that was a mentor of mine at the time in the blogging space, is that if you are just now getting tired of saying the things that you say to your audience over and over and over again, they are just now starting to catch on. All right, because they do not spend anywhere close to the amount of time you spend with your content. And so you have got to keep repurposing and putting it in front of them, especially your most foundational pillar stuff. So something I didn't mention, because it's more strategic than tactical, and this call was meant to be tactical, but strategic wise, the content that you need to be creating first is your most foundational stuff, right? It's the stuff that you continue to link to over and over and over again, because you're like, this is what this is about. So for example, this is our most foundational piece. It's Ryan's customer value optimization article, and this has been read thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And it's because we push everybody into here, because this is the most foundational piece of content that we have, and it's freely available. It's almost like a manifesto, right? It's like, if you want to know what we're all about, go here. And if you don't have pieces like that, you should start there, because everything else can be sort of, all the gaps can be kind of filled in around it. But this was one of the first pieces that we created when we launched this blog because it was so foundational and we needed it everywhere else. Like everything else we're writing is linking back to it, right? This post on this post on blogging, the $6 million post, is another post that we built early on in the content strategy because we link to it all the time. It's like, well, how do you guys build blogs? And it's like, this is the most foundational post that we have. And so you'll find this thing that the ideas and the content in this post will reappear elsewhere around DM Lab, on calls, in PDF form, in video form, because we really want you to know this stuff. All right. So no, it doesn't annoy them. Believe it or not, I have never had anybody say to me like, hey, you just repurposed that over here, because they're just not spending that much time with your stuff. You've got to repurpose it. Is anybody like, hey, Molly, like, did you watch any of the World Series, baseball
No,
World Series?
I'm sorry.
So I love baseball because I'm from St. Louis, and you have to love baseball here, or you get escorted to the city limits and shot. So I'm watching the World Series. Anybody watching the World Series, how many times did DirecTV run these Rob Lowe, I'm super creepy Rob Lowe, I'm painfully awkward Rob Lowe commercials? Like they'd run two of them at the same, back to back. And it's because you've got to keep putting your message in front of people. You've got to keep at it. All right. It's a part of advertising and marketing called frequency. You've got to get a high frequency of your content in front of them. And that's another reason why you want them on Facebook following you. You want them on Twitter because you want them to sort of start to think that you're everywhere in their little universe. And you're really not everywhere. You're just everywhere in their universe. So, that's my more than 2 cents about whether or not repurposing works and whether it annoys people. It doesn't. All right.
Yeah, we have a good question. It's Jana.
I'm sniffling a lot, he says. James says.
I have a question related to the Authority blog plan. In the course, you recommend that we create 30 posts in advance before we launch the post. Mm-hmm. I was wondering how important this is for an existing blog that already has 60 posts, but I took a hiatus. Is it really important to relaunch it, or should I just gradually resume posting new content? We went through this.
We did. Yeah, you're right. And
yeah,
go ahead, Molly, because you were here before I was here. So
right. So before Russ came on, we had a time period, a few months, where we didn't really have content on the blog. But once Russ started again, we just kind of resumed as normal. Mm-hmm. So we started posting, once, twice, or 3 times a week, and engagement gradually began to pick back up. Mm-hmm. So there's you can absolutely pick back up where you started.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the idea behind creating the 30 pieces of content in Authority ROI is for somebody that has no blog. Because if you've ever installed WordPress on a site, a blog theme for WordPress, it looks like a skeleton. All right. It just looks like nothing. There's nothing there because you need content to fill it. And so you cannot be sending traffic to an empty site. Now, so if you're proud of the content that you have, that you built before, and you just want to sort of resume, absolutely, that's fine. But if you're starting a blog from scratch, you need to fill that thing with content. And I like that number of 30 posts, 15 posts published, and then 15 posts ready to rock and roll to email out to your audience as you start to pick up subscribers. Because that part of Authority ROI is talking about a launch, which has a start date and an end date and a budget. And you're going to start throwing some eyeballs at that site. A launch is about, spiking your traffic fast and taking advantage of getting as many subscribers as you can. Did I drop?
Sorry, I think we lost you for a minute, but you are back.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry.
So James wants to know why Digital Marketer doesn't use the same blog layout as other properties, Survival Life, DIY Ready. Authority ROI recommends a more messy blog arrangement. And he says they all have great images.
Yeah, I
Do
mean,
you know why we do that, Russ?
well, I wouldn't consider Digital Marketer to be playing in the same space as Survival Life. When we build sites like Survival Life, DIY Ready, um, Absolute Rights. All right, the whole play is a huge content strategy. When we started content at Digital Marketer, we already had a very successful, thriving business. Like we weren't this site was not digitalmarketer.com was not built by creating blog content. As Survival Life was, as DIY Ready. DIY Ready gets 30K visits a day through SEO and content. It's just a huge content strategy play.
Yeah, I talked to Stephanie yesterday. They're getting like 6,000 visits from Pinterest a day with DIY Ready. So if your business can be image heavy at all, definitely give that a shot.
Yeah, take a look at what they're doing at DIY Ready, because you don't when you look at what we're doing in Authority ROI, we don't refer to DM's blog in the same way. In fact, most of the content that and now James has got me all weirded out about sniffing too much on the call.
It's okay.
If you look at Authority ROI, we use Survival Life as the example there, because it was built from nothing, and it was built using it was not built on the back of Ryan Deiss's name, or Ryan just has no connection anywhere on that site, right? Except that he's one of the owners of it, so but Digital Marketer is a different animal, right? He's been building this list up since like 04, so it's just a different deal. And a lot of the content that we create on digitalmarketer.com comes from our team, because the selling proposition of DM Lab is that we are doing a lot of research, and so we are publishing a lot of that research coming out of our own team, right? Which is different from the way you would build an authority site, which is, you would go out and get outside experts, right? So there's just no right or wrong way to do things, right? But, we built DIY Ready, and we built Survival Life using the Authority ROI method. Digital Marketer Labs, digitalmarketer.com is a little bit of a different animal, just because of the stage of a business that it's in. This business was doing using a completely different model. I know Ryan was messing around with different ways of getting blogs to pay off for years before they figured it out with Survival Life. And so he had already built up digitalmarketer.com but that said, the way that we've run this blog, I ran the numbers on it the other day. We've increased traffic to this blog by 784% over the last year. So, and it's just mainly.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost 800% increase in traffic to this blog, and it does. We've probably had a couple dozen different writers on the blog over this last 10, 11 months, but there is a lot of content on digitalmarketer.com that comes out of Digital Marketer, because what we are selling is access to the lab. That's really what we are selling. That is our core offer. I will not sniff ever again, James. Promise.
Awesome. I think we've covered most of the questions, unless you guys have anything last minute that you want to ask.
A good antihistamine may help Russ. My daughter has a horrible like chest cold and nasal cold and all of that stuff going on. So maybe I'm getting a little bit of it and I hadn't noticed it. But
Travis says you guys provide incredible content on a consistent basis. You can't get quality like that anywhere. That's one of the reasons you've increased traffic. Well, thank you very much.
yeah, fantastic stuff, man. And
Kelly has a really, really long question about SEO. Kelly, you might want to take that to the Facebook group or shoot Russ a message or something to answer unless you want to do it right now.
yeah, that looks like a long one. Copy and paste that into the DM Engage group because I'd love to answer that. That's a great question.
Right. Oh, Russ, and back to the keyword question from Annie also.
Right. Yeah. So what I would suggest that you do, if you want to know what's going on with search engine optimization today, and actually Traffic and Conversion Summit. When is Traffic and Conversion Summit, Molly?
February 17th through the 19th.
Okay, so at Traffic and Conversion Summit, we're going to be talking a lot about what's happened to SEO especially the last 2 years, but what's been happening ever since. Really, I got into SEO in 2004, and it was a lot different back then. I did an execution plan called How to SEO a WordPress Website. And if you want to know the different places to put your keywords, you're going to want to look at, there's one video, and that's it right there. Learn the 5 on-page SEO factors. These are the 5 things that you need to be looking at. There's 5 different places, your title tag, your meta description, your slug, your body copy, and your alts on your images. And those are the 5 big things you want to be looking at from an SEO standpoint to be putting your keywords. But SEO has just changed so much. I mean, this really doesn't work as well as understanding the whole of what I'm talking about in this entire execution plan, which is really what Ryan is calling UXO. So it's a little bit of a reveal of what we're going to be talking about at Traffic and Conversion Summit. But user experience optimization is really where Google has gotten to these days. They understand the user experience on the site. They understand if you're creating good stuff or not. And so the siloing concept that I cover in this execution plan, if you're a blogger, you really need to take this execution plan and at least do the 11-point SEO health check. I'll be honest with you, at Digital Marketer, we are having trouble with some of the things in this SEO health check just because we have such a big site and we're a target, for things. We get targeted by hackers. Anybody on WordPress does, but we get it, I think, more than just about anybody else that I've ever worked with. If you've
been around for a while, you remember what our site redirected to about a year ago.
Well, I won't even ask because I wasn't.
Viagra says.
Oh yeah. I mean, we had we were hacked for. We used to get hacked like every other day. I mean, so if you've got a small blog, most of these things are going to be fine. But check through this SEO health check because honestly, it does not matter where you put keywords or how much keyword research you do if you have any of the death sentence issues that are going on in this health check. This is really, where we start with SEO today is we look at the site and we go, is this site healthy? Like, is there any major structural issues with the site? Like, is Google even seeing your pages, or are they seeing a bunch of pages that you don't want them to see, right? That's clogging up your index. And that's what the whole health check's about. Is like, take this, and this will take you, if you're pretty good on the internet, this will take you about an hour to do, to go through and just check the health of your blog and your site. And then after that, I start walking through, okay, here's how you need to be thinking about how your content needs to lay out in this new world of SEO. And it's about siloing, which may sound like a new concept to you, but it's actually as old as SEO is, right? The very father of SEO, his name was Bruce Clay, came up with this concept called siloing, and it still works today. And it's really about the only thing that still works today on a consistent basis for a person that doesn't want to risk going against Google's terms of service. Is this siloing concept? So it seems like a new way of doing SEO. It's really an old way that still works, and it's about the only thing that still works. So anyway, targeting by hackers would be
Awesome.
a good topic for the future.
Kelly put his question into Engage, so we can't forget to.
Okay, I'll jump in there right now and take a look at that. I'll throw one more thing at you guys before we leave, and this is the total. I don't know these guys, and DM doesn't know these guys, but if you are getting hacked, I see a couple people in here going, "Hey, I'm getting hacked," too, and stuff like that. But we've used these guys, and I've used them on other sites too, and these guys are great. And I don't know if your experience will be the same, but they're cheap, and if you're getting hacked, they'll clean it up and they'll take care of it for you. So, and I think it looks like they changed everything up, but I think we used these guys earlier.
They kind of saved our life.
Yeah. And I don't know who these guys are, but I've used them about half a dozen times now to clean up sites. So anyway.
So hold on. We have one more good question.
Okay.
I've noticed you don't have a search bar on the blog. Is this deliberate? How does one get to pass post? We did have a search bar on the blog, and the functionality was really screwy. We've been building a lot of funnels, so we haven't gotten to that, but it's not deliberately not there. We will have a search bar that works soon, but if you do want to get to past post, just go to the blog and scroll down to the bottom and click older posts, and you can continue to scroll through. And you can also sort by traffic, conversion, engagement, so that should help you also.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you guys. And
Russ, you did an awesome job.
Well, thank you. And it was fun. And I'm looking forward to talking to you guys again. Don't forget, you guys have What's Working Now tomorrow. If you haven't seen your registration for that, ping us in the DM Engage group, where we're going to be talking about funnel analytics live with Chris Mercer tomorrow on What's Working Now. I think that's it.
Yeah, guys, if you really should be on that call. We get tons of questions about how we do tracking through the funnels, and Russ and I were having a really hard time with our analytics, and we actually hired Chris as a consultant, and he really helped us get everything set up and running. So that should be a really good office hours.
Yeah.
Or What's Working Now.
What's Working Now. Awesome, guys.
Hold on. People are asking for the link to office hours, so I'm going to pop it in the box real quick.
Sweet. Yeah, and anytime you guys need help, like, hey, when's this and when's that, just ping us in the Engage group, and we can always help you out there too.
The pinned post at the top of the Facebook group always has updated links for what's coming next in terms of calls.
Yeah, this one from Bridget.
Yes. All right. You guys should have that link now. Jan says, how do you get a list for What's Working Now calls? We don't really have a list. It's once a month, so we can't plan, a year in advance because the industry changes so quickly, and we really want it to be what's working now. So we, post it in the Facebook group. We also send an email with the registration link about a week before the call. And this call and all of our calls are always recorded and placed in the members area, digitalmarketer.com/lab.
Yeah, so they all use office hours calls. Cool, guys. We got everybody. We get everything.
I think that everybody's taken care of.
All right, Kelly, I'm going to jump in and answer your question in DM Engage, and everybody else, we'll talk to you tomorrow on What's Working Now. Thanks, Molly.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.